Welcome to this week's Endurance for Everyone podcast.
The following program is for entertainment purposes only. Though the hosts of this show are certified Ironman coaches, their attempts at long-course triathlons and endurance events should not be taken as an endorsement for you to do something stupid too. You should make your own bad decisions, then podcast about it. Now, let's start the show.
Welcome to episode 169er of the Endurance for Everyone podcast. I am John. I'm here in Tampa, and I want to say hello to everybody up north. I hope you guys are staying warm up there. It did get cold here. I know you all laugh at me when I say it, but it actually got into the 30s a couple days ago here in Florida. So, I mean, you know what that means down here in Florida? That means hoodies with shorts and flip-flops. But, you know, the struggle is real. The struggle is real. So we're 1 week out from our reunion of sorts from last week with Andrew Weaver. I think that was a great episode. 2 hours. The man can talk, I'm telling you. But if you're new to Andrew, yeah, that's par for the course. I got a couple of comments on that, not realizing, you know, because I had mentioned it before, but you know, it was a lot of good information, and he definitely takes it seriously, and his weight loss has been outstanding. I mean, it's hard to believe. Not hard to believe. I don't want to make it sound like that, but you know, he's a good 40 pounds lighter than I am now, and he was a way heavier than I was when I first met him. So it's outstanding work on his part, and I hope he keeps it up, and I hope to see him out there racing one day. And when he is, you know, welcome him back on the show, and you know, let us know how he's doing, and to get us some updates on his health. But good to see the man getting back out there and figuring it all out and getting healthy. He's got some young kids, so I know they want him around for a long time. So we're going to get started with the show today. A weird thing that I'm going to start off with, you know, after the little break here, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the 80-20 rule as it applies to not only business, you know, because that's where it came from, but as it applies to training. I did send an email out to my clients today explaining that their training plans might look a little bit different, and so we'll talk a little bit about that, and also want to talk a little bit about something Andrew brought up last week, which is the 5x5 working out, and not really talking about that, but I got to thinking a little bit more about that over the course of the week, so I want to talk a little bit about that. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. So in Romans 7:15, it says, Paul's letter to the Romans, it says, I do not understand what I do for what I want to do, and then I do not do what I hate. I do. In Bible speak, of course. But, and I know everybody that knows me personally is like, what the hell is going on here? He's quoting scripture. But, as somebody that, you know, I like to keep my ears open, eyes open, and I was watching a program, and actually they were talking about that verse, and I started thinking about it, and it kind of hit me that, you know, that makes a lot of sense, because I'm sitting there, and, you know, we talk a lot about weight loss, and we talk a lot about training, and kind of getting our proverbial crap together, and even though we know what to do as coaches, as athletes, as, you know, people just trying to get a handle on their health, we often know what to do, but we don't do it. And what drives that, and that was interesting to me. And he did talk about, you know, a little bit about a few other things. One was Galatians 5:19 is when you follow your nature, the results are very clear. And the guy speaking, I believe his name was Andy Stanley. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that. But it was late and I couldn't sleep, and this just happened to be on TV. So it kind of basically the lesson I guess he was trying to get across was that our nature as a humans is to do the wrong things, is to do a lot of bad things. And I'm not going to get into the religious stuff about that because, if you know me, I'm not a big follower of that, but I do like the lesson, and our nature is to do bad to ourselves and to do, even though we know it is bad. And we know that when we pick up when we're trying to get in shape and we need to go out for a run and we choose to sit at home and watch, binge watch Netflix, we know that's wrong, but yet we do it because it's the easy thing to do. And as human beings, I guess we strive for the immediate over the ultimate, I guess. And learning how to keep our eye on the focus, eye on the focus, that's not even the right way to say it, but the eye on the ball, I guess. The end goal being whatever it is for you, even without training, but we'll talk training for right now. Is your end goal is to run a marathon. Your end goal is to complete an Ironman, a 140.6. Your end goal is to run a sub 35K, and everything that you do that takes you away from that goal needs to be out of your life. And, obviously the biblical version of that is another thing, but it still applies. It's like everything. If your goal is to lose 50 pounds, let's say, and you're eating ice cream or you're eating chips and salsa and cheese, and cheese is not all that bad, but you get what I'm trying to say. It's taking you away from that goal, and you need to get it out of your life. If there's people in your life that get in your way of meeting those goals, those people need to be out of your life. And it's not I'm not trying to be a jerk about that. It's that, people that matter in your life won't stop you from reaching your goal. And if anybody is in your life that knows you want to do something and knows how important it is to you and still actively gets in your way, then I'd have to question whether they really have a place in your life. We have this I guess this weird way as humans that we make decisions that undermine our own futures, and it never fails to amaze me that people do this. Is that that doing that is wrong, yet it's going to screw up your future. And I've done it myself professionally. I've done it in training. I've done it in every way possible. And I look at myself like 20 years later and even 10 years later and think, what the hell was I thinking? I knew better than that. And yet I still did it. So I think it comes down to the things that we want. And unfortunately, as humans, what do you want? And you want your way, and you want your way now. And that's just human nature, I think. And I think we have to ask ourselves, what do you really want? It's kind of like three questions. And I believe he did say this in his little lesson, is that there's three questions you need to answer for yourself. Is what do you really want? And what keeps dragging you away from what you really want? And how long do you plan on letting it keep dragging you away from what you really want? And I think it also comes down to, if you say this is what you really want and you keep doing things that stop you from getting there, is that what you really want? And I'll liken it to a person at work. Of course, I won't use names, but she came to me this is a while ago, and said, and I think I've mentioned it on the show before, but she came to me and said, I really need to lose weight, John. Can you help me lose weight? And I said, well, yeah, I could. The first step would be stop drinking the Cokes, because she drinks Cokes constantly all day long, at least 4 a day, at least 4 cans a day. She says, oh, I can't live without my Coke. I said, well, then you don't want to lose weight. When you really want to, you'll stop drinking the Coke. She's not and it really, it's that first step. It's these small little baby steps that can make the biggest difference in your life, right? Just stop doing that one thing. And then once you stop doing that one thing, then stop doing one more thing, and then stop doing another thing. I came home from, I've been, like I said, I've been a big practicer of talking myself out of things. And I did get injured before Disney, and it was the right decision to pull out. And a lot of people did tell me the right decision. It still bothered me that I did, because it seems to happen a lot to me. But the core issue is that I'm still heavy and I get hurt. And the more stress I put on my body, the more I get hurt. And that's what happens is I go into a marathon training program and I do fine for a while. And once the miles start getting up there, I start getting hurt. And it happened again. And, but even with that, I was down on myself a little bit and kind of ready to get out there again. But even though I was ready to get out there and I had the clearance to go, I didn't go. So I made a conscious effort when I got up. Well, yesterday I went for a nice walk. We had the day off. So I went and picked up Karen, my friend Karen, and we went for a walk, and that was good and kind of got me outside. And then today I said, well, my plan was I was going to come home, I was going to get changed, and I was going to go do my 4 miles. But sure enough, I get to the end of the day, rough day at work. I tend to get migraines, and sure enough, there's a migraine coming on. And most of the time I would say, well, I can't run. I can't run with this headache. I can't run if I feel this thing coming on. If it hits me in the middle of a run, it's going to be bad, blah, blah, blah. So trying to talk myself out of it. And I didn't do it. I'm kind of proud of myself tonight that I came home. I started a load of clothes. I put dishes in the dishwasher. I changed my clothes. I grabbed my watch and I grabbed my pack and I went out the door. And I didn't take any medication for the head because I was worried that if I did that, it would kind of make me sluggish. And I just said, I'm going to go. And if I start feeling bad, I'll turn around. But I ended up getting the whole 4 miles in. It was a slow 4 miles, and I haven't run in 3 weeks. I have a race in 20 days. I got to get out there, and I finished it. And even though, I've been better, but I was proud of myself for getting out there. And the way it's been lately, any victory like that is a victory, it's, so I think what we have to focus on in the end of this little segment, I guess, is don't trade the ultimate for the immediate. Keep your eye on the ball, keep your eye on the prize, and stop getting immediate, choose immediate gratify. How do you know what I'm saying? I'm not even going to try to overdub that at all, but, and don't trade the valuable for the natural. It's natural for us to be bad, but it's not valuable. So choose your value and go with it from there. And you never get what you want until you discover what you value. And the things you value are going to be important to you. And I would suggest that you take a good hard look at the things you think you value and to see if you really value these things. It's very common when you ask somebody, what are your values? What do you value in life? And people will say their health, and they'll say their family, and they'll say religion, church, and they'll say their friends. And then you look at their actions, and it's none of those things. And, they'll say they value their health, but they don't exercise and they eat like crap. And they say they value their family, but they work 70 hours a week. They value their church, but they never go to church. They value their friends, but they don't hang out with their friends. They stay at home binging Netflix all weekend. So, when you say, be honest with yourself, it's okay to not value these things. And I think sometimes we say things because it's expected of us to say that we value friends, we value health, and we value family and all. But not all of us value these same things. And I think if you're honest with yourself, it's going to be better in the long run, and you'll find out what really is important to you. Ready for a history lesson? In 1906, a man named Vilfredo Pareto in Italy discovered that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. That is what we call the 80-20 rule. And really the basic definition of the 80-20 rule is that 20% of your activities will account for 80% of your results. So your focus should be on the 20%. Now, how in business this works, this is taught in all business schools, probably all other schools too, is that 20%, and it goes worldwide. And it continually is true. I can say personally, I work at a county office, children's services, and we have kids living on our campus, and we track what we call incidents. But incidents can be like fighting, arguing, blah, 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 all this stuff. And, over the 4 years that I've been there and tracking this stuff, I can tell you that 80% of the incidents are caused by 20% of the kids. You always have these one or two kids that are the trouble kids. And it shows true. You can say worldwide wealth, that 80% of the world's income is the 80%, let's put it this way, 80% of the highest income earners in the world are 20% of the population. Within the United States holds true. So you can say, we can get into the math. It's not always 20% exactly, of course not, but it tends to hold true over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So how does this relate to training? So Matt Fitzgerald wrote many books on this thing, so I'm not going to regurgitate anything that he writes. But I have started looking at this again, because when I look at my clients, even when I look at my own training plan is one thing. But when I look at my clients' training plan, I've been noticing that a couple have been having some issues with time. And not because they have busy lives. We all have jobs. We all have families. Well, you guys have families, so you don't have the time to go out there every Saturday and do 8-hour training sessions. So the idea is you need to get the biggest bang for your buck. So what I'll ask a client is say, okay, on Tuesday, how much time do you have? Well, I have an hour. Okay, how do we get the biggest bang for a buck in that hour? And it really comes down to an 80-20 rule. So I've started re-looking at how I do training plans. Instead of mileage all the time, go back to a time base. So I have an hour. And if you apply the 80-20 rule to this hour, then you can look at it and say, well, now I'm doing math here as I'm sitting here because of course I didn't do this prior. So if you have 80-20 rule for an hour, so that's 20% of an hour is, it's 12 minutes. So that leaves 48 minutes. So for every 1 minute, you need 1 minute of intensity for every 4 minutes. So you have 5. So you have 6. So 6 will make the hour, or 12 makes the hour. I'm sorry. So how do you apply that? You say, well, the easy part for running is say, okay, you run 1 minute high intensity, and then you dial it back to zone 2 for 4 minutes. Then you run 1 minute high intensity and you dial it back to 4 minutes, going back to the Galloway method. A little bit different than the Galloway method, and this is a very simplistic way of looking at this. You can apply it to the bike. The hardest thing is applying to a swim, because it's a little bit harder to gauge time and things like that, but I tried. So I think we need to get in our heads that you can get the same results without putting in all of the effort. None of us are, I don't think anybody listening to this show is a professional. But we're adult onset athletes. We're athletes that may have been athletic in our youth and that we've come back to it a little bit. And I think we need to, as we get older, we need to realize that we're not 18 anymore, that we're not 20 anymore. We can't run 8-minute miles, and that's fine. Some of us can, but most of us can't. And even if we try to over the course of time, we're going to get hurt. So the idea is not to just stay active, but the idea is to do it in a way that you gain, you get better, you get healthier, and you stay healthy enough to be able to keep doing it. without getting hurt. So I throw that out as a challenge to like the people that are a little bit faster that aren't my clients to go out there and test that for me. Like go out and for an hour run as hard as you can for a minute. And then, and I'm not talking about a stroll, but slow down to like a zone 2, probably a zone 3 when your heart rate gets up there, but a zone 2 to 3, 4 minutes, and then run again for a minute and do it for an hour. And let me know your results, kind of put it on the Facebook group, or you can email me directly, John at Endurance for Everyone, and just let me know how it goes for you. Because I'd be very interested in seeing how this works for other people. Now, myself, we've been doing the Galloway method, and I kind of alluded to this during the show with Andrew last week, but I'm starting to believe it a little bit more that, I agree that the Galloway method gives people the ability to run and to get out there that maybe were not out there before. And, but I think it's turned at least in my case, I think it's turned into a crutch, and I need to stop doing that. And so tonight I left the Garmin at home. I just took the Apple Watch out, which does not beep at me every minute or every 30 seconds to run and every 60 minutes to walk, and 60 seconds, I mean. And I just ran until I felt like I couldn't run anymore. And then I walked until I felt like I could run again. And then I just ran again. This is how I used to do it in the very beginning. And I noticed that I could run a lot longer than I've been running. I think when I have the Garmin on and I have it set to do those intervals, that I push myself too hard during the running sections. And that affects my walk, of course. I walk too slow. So what I was doing this time, and I know for a lot of you this is nothing, but for me this is a big deal. If I can run a quarter of a mile to a half a mile without stopping, that's a big deal for me. I haven't done that in a long time, but I was doing it tonight, and I was doing it slow. I was doing it maybe at a 12 to 13 minute mile pace, but I was finding that I could do it. One of my clients also, I gave her, and she freaked out about it. I gave her like, oh, no, I want you to run the whole thing, like a 3-mile run. And I want you to try to run the whole thing without walking. And it freaked her out. And, but you know what? She did it because I wanted to see if she could do it. And I thought she could do it. And I want her to start believing that she can do these things. She just needs to do it, and at least give it a shot. If you can't do it, that's fine. You can't do it, but at least you gave it a shot. So I think, I'm in that space as well, that I need to stop, kind of relying on that run walk, and kind of start pushing myself out of my comfort zone a little bit, and back into the 20% high intensity and 80% cool down, and see how that goes for me, and see if I can knock myself out of this little funk. Start the last section talking a little bit more about what Andrew brought up last week as far as a 5x5 weight training. And as you heard last week when he started talking about weightlifting, and that's right where I'd go to. That's a method that I was doing, when I was lifting a lot a few years ago, and I believe it works. And really it's just 5 basic exercises, and it's 5 reps of each, and you're doing 2 to 3 exercise types every day, and you're doing squats every day, but alternating between bench presses and overhead presses or military presses and deadlifts. But I want, and bent over rows is what he used, but the one I used to use was a clean from the floor. Either or, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I think the basic 2 exercises are the bench press and the squat. I think you can get away with just those 2 exercises. I truly believe that. And I started thinking more about that a lot of people don't go to the gym. A lot of people are kind of intimidated by the gym or just don't like the gym, and I can't blame them all in all, because, I've been to gyms that are full of meatheads, and, and it's not comfortable, even as a former meathead myself, but I was never that type that grunted and yelled and screamed and things like that. So I can see hesitation and why that would be. So I started thinking, it's like, well, is there a way that you can do this at home without really lifting weights, you just doing body weight? And of course there is. I mean, there's always the air squat and there's always the push-up. But when you look at the app that Andrew brought up, and it's a decent app. It's Strong Lifts 5x5. If you want to look at it, I believe it's both Android and Apple. It tells you, like, you start it and you do it, and then you hit the app to stop. But it always asks for your weight, the weight that you're lifting. But what if you're home and you're doing push-ups and and squats? So what do you do? And I think there's, like, not among a lot of people, but I think there's some, when you say, well, that's a body weight exercise, blah, blah, blah. But you're not lifting your whole body, okay? When you're doing a push-up, you're not lifting, like, if I'm doing a push-up, I'm not lifting 275 pounds. So, out comes the calculator again, and I started working on this. So, a lot of assumptions have to be made. The angle, you always want a right angle, the pivot point being the hips. Everybody's got different pivot points, things like that. But in general, I kind of push it. I'm not going to get into the math of it. It's kind of like, it's way too much to even talk about online. But, I put it all together, and then I kind of went online and said, okay, let me see if I can find it online, see if I'm close. So a proper push-up is arms at 90 degrees to floor and the spine in a straight line. So hands should be placed about, not at shoulder width, but about 1.5 times shoulder width. I have a problem with that because I have psoriatic arthritis in my wrist, so I can't really push my hands flat. I can do them on my fists, or I have to go out wider. So it's, on your fists a little bit harder. You can also use dumbbells or kettlebells, as handles. You can push up handles, push up bars, things like that. There's ways to do that. So after, with all my mathematical genius and calculations, I came up with about 56% of body weight. When I looked online, that was about the same thing. It was about 55 to 57% of your body weight. So for me, at 270, that would be around 154 pounds. So when I'm doing a 5x5 at home and I'm just doing a squat and a push-up, I should be putting in 154 pounds, 150 pounds, let's say, just to round it down. So you can use that. You are lifting weight when you're doing that. If you're doing it against an incline, like, say, a bench, you see people do it at a bench, don't want to go all the way down to the floor, your pivot changes a little bit. So that becomes about 42% of your body weight. And you can do it at countertop, which is about 36% of your body weight. The deal is that do what you can and count it, and remember to count it as you're lifting weights. So yes, it's body weight. It's not a bar, but their barbells weren't around forever, and Eugene Sandow was, building his body in the 1870s, so you didn't need it back then. You don't need it now either. So squats, the same kind of techniques and methods. You're not really lifting your leg. You're mostly lifting your torso, which is about 30% of your lower body, 30% of your entire body weight, 30 to 40%. So for mine, that's probably about 110 pounds. So if I'm doing an air squat, I'm probably doing a squat of about 110 pounds. The interesting thing in all this is that when you do a squat, and you put 110 pounds on a bar, it only counts as 110 pounds. You're still lifting 110 pounds of your body as well. Bench press is not the same because you're pushing the weight off your body. So it's not, you wouldn't count your body weight. But so I wonder why your body weight never counted as part of the squat as well, because you are lifting part of your body, right? So that's a question for the International Olympic Committee. I think we can call it that. So with that, that we're going to end the show on that point. So questions, concerns, attaboys, you're freaking crazy, John. You can send it to John at enduranceforeveryone.com or teamE4E at enduranceforeveryone.com. We are on all the social media platforms at teamE4E. Go to the website, www.teamE4E.com. You can see, if you're interested in coaching, that's there. You can see blog posts. The main blog is fatslowtriathlete.com, but we do post over to teamE4E on occasion. probably a cross post of some kind, which is bad practice, I know, but it's there. So until next week, we'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to the Endurance for Everyone podcast. If you have comments or questions for the show, send an email to teamE4E at enduranceforeveryone.com. And remember, swim calm, bike strong, and run steady.